Welcome to the 624 Pod, your home for all things independent films. We're going to discuss all the positives and negatives when it comes to independent filmmaking. We're going to have incredible guests from the film industry talk about behind-the-scenes experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, and how the industry has changed in the past 10, 20
minutes.
30, minutes, hours, years. That's the point. It's always changing. And of course, we will always focus on independent filmmaking right here in our state of New Jersey. I'm Tom Baldinger.
And I'm Mark Rigodano.
All right, let's do this. All right. So, Mark, another episode of 624 podcast. I almost said another episode of Checked Out.
I'm excited because I'm excited for our guest because I don't know enough about what he does.
Well, let me tell you.
And I feel like this is going to be a learning experience for me.
It's going to be awesome. So our next guest is Neil Johnson, who is an award-winning independent filmmaker, director, producer, writer. I met Neil many years ago. His companion Tracy Birdsall, one of his great actresses, was in my first feature film called Who's Jenna, and Neil and I met many years ago when we've kept in touch, and then we kind of lost touch. And I reached out to him recently and said, Neil, let's talk shop, and we started talking shop, and now we've got him on the podcast. So Neil, thank you and welcome onto 624 Pod.
Thank you. It was actually a fun time when we met. It was a big screening for you, I think, wasn't it?
It was. That was down in Asbury Park. Yes, at the oh my God, totally blanking out on the venue, but the venue that we screened Who's Jen at is actually closing. It was great. That was a great space, and I'm totally blanking out on the name of it. But more importantly, Neil, tell us about your history, your career, and what you're working on now, and let's get into it. Tell us about you.
I never like to talk about myself too much because, it comes off like pompous and everything. So,
all right. So then let me throw this out at you. What are you working on now? What's going on? What's the next thing that you're working on?
Well, I'm going to have to give you the history. It'll put it in context. So I've been a director since the age of 21, which a long time ago. I was doing that in Australia. I'm British, but I did the directing and stuff in Australia for television and stuff, and worked my way into short films and music videos and feature films. I think in 1995, I wrote a film basically called The Time War, way back in 1995. And following writing that, I did my first feature film, which was, I think, the world's first digital anamorphic feature film ever made and cut on a computer. We're going back to 1996.
Wow.
Nobody had ever done that. I was told that I was a fool for doing this, except for George Lucas, who came to Australia in the year 2000 and wanted to meet up and chat about the process. Well, he and Rick McCallum, which was really kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I just kept doing science fiction films, on a smaller budget, but they always sold internationally to, 20 plus territories, which is always promising. Doesn't always mean you get paid, but you have to sue people, I've discovered. And I kept making films and, this and that, and doing stuff with different distributors and companies as a director. That's all I've done. But I came to the point where I really wanted to do my own stuff. So I pulled out that script I wrote in 1995 and I decided to do that. And it was originally a movie called The Time War. And the basic premise is Adolf Hitler traveling through time, rewriting history, and his daughter tries to stop him. So it's a big story.
Excellent.
And the original film version was not really that exact storyline. It was a bit more vague, but in my head that was kind of what the story was. And one day we were shooting, and this I thought I would improv a couple of extra characters, in different realities, because we thought it'd be fun. I was working with Tracy Birdsall, the actress, is actually on the t-shirt, and this character I saw just came out of nowhere. It was just like, it was just this moment. It's like, wow, I want to know about this character. It's like they speak to you sometimes. You know, you create a character and it suddenly becomes real inside you. This character just begged to be brought out into a bigger story.
Wow.
So it was always there. In the process of shooting the Time War, there was a big fire in Malibu, and
And what year was this? What year was this when you were doing?
December 2018.
Okay.
So we'd already shot the main movie, and we were just doing pickup shots.
Sure.
And I'd been working on another movie called Rogue Warrior, Robot Fighter. And suddenly this big fire comes in and wipes out all the editing equipment, all the cameras, all the lenses.
Oh my God.
A lot of the footage, all the costumes, except for one or two things, all the props, pretty much everything, except for the fact that, you know, I'd somehow decided to had a storage place over the hill, and I had a bunch of stuff in storage, including some of the footage that was backed up, but not all of the footage. But, you know, losing some of the props especially was a pain in the ass, and the costumes. Of course, narrowly escaping with our lives and everything, you know.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a big fire, and I mean, I got some great footage. And of course, all I could do, I was stuck with this little toy camera, you know, little Panasonic GH5S, nice camera, and a couple of basic lenses, and I just started running around.
I love how you just called it a toy camera.
I was. I mean, for me, you know, I'm a fussy. It was a little plastic thing, but it was a really good camera. I'm going to say, it was fantastic. But compared to the red cinema camera I had with the big lenses, it's definitely a toy. You know, the red melted, of course. And I was out filming the fire and all this great footage. I was like, man, oh man, what are we going to do? So I had to kind of rewrite, cobble myself back to life.
Wow.
But of course, in the process, the Time War story and the character kept speaking to me. So I kept writing, and we kept shooting, kept writing, building the story up. And all of a sudden, well, it's a 5-hour movie. That's not good. So, you know, I'm more of I really like novels and big stories, and
sure,
television series is a novel cut into chapters.
Yeah.
So I realized that's what it was. So at the end of the day, I turned the Time War from a 2-hour movie, missing some footage, into a 10-hour epic limited series.
Excellent.
All shot on the red camera, mostly shot on the red.
Beautiful camera.
5K and blah, blah, blah. And I've been in post-production now for a few years.
Excellent.
Because 10 hours is quite a long time, and you've got to rebuild your equipment. And, you know, I was helped along the way. That's probably why we lost touch, because I didn't have many clothes or anything. I even lost my website, you know.
Oh, my gosh.
You know, the whole thing, it was terrible.
Well, Neil, go ahead. I was
going to ask, so when you were young, before you even got into directing, what was the movie or the book, or what inspired you to go, I want to make sci-fi film?
Oh, it's easy. Age of 2, I saw Neil Armstrong walking on the moon, and my father tried to explain, you know, he's on the moon and he's on TV, and I couldn't figure the two things out. And of course, then first novel I ever read was The Time Machine by H.G. Wells at the age of 6, and then I read War of the Worlds, and you know, around that time I started writing my own stories. So you know, I wrote my first novel at the age of 10, which of course sounds impressive, but it was really a rewrite of Star Wars.
That's great.
But you know, it's what you do as a child, and writing and building, and I was obsessed with cameras as well. You know, I got a Super 8mm camera, I think the age of 7 or 8. And so somebody loaned it to us, and first thing I did is run out and film a helicopter and played news cameraman and made stories. I mean, I was immediately making stories with the camera. It was just how it was. So it just kept growing and growing.
I'm just picturing a little kid sitting with his dad going, but there's no cord.
Yeah, there was a problem. There was a problem in my head. And I do remember that. But I was just about to turn the age of 2. It was July 20th or 21st, 1969. So, I knew my exact age, and I have a memory of that memory because it was so important to me. So it's just a thing that made me a sci-fi nut immediately. And it just, even at the age of 2, you can affect people that way.
So Neil, I mean, the industry itself has changed so much for independent filmmakers as the three of us are here. From you have the strikes that happened, to what's going on today. There was network TV, there was cable, now it's the streamers. Now the streamers are pulling back, the streaming networks are pulling back, and I just read an article the other day on Deadline that was talking about how independent film made a movement. There was a movement back in the 90s, right, of independent filmmaking. And now that movement, the future for TV series is going to be independent. Would you agree with that? Would you, with that sort of that thought notion?
I don't know. That's an interesting statement. You see, there was independent films in the 50s. There were B movies,
right?
Or C movie, pretty bad. But sometimes they're the films we remember. Even like George Powell was a bit independent, when he was doing War of the Worlds and stuff. And there was always the independent movement, I guess, in the 50s, the 60s, less so, more so in the 70s, again, a little bit. And the 80s, yeah, you could see it disappearing again. The 90s, it came back again.
Yeah.
I think anyone starting out, and I think what helped the independent movement in the 90s, late 90s, I guess, was the start of digital. Yeah. At least for me, because I wanted to make a movie, and the only way I could do it was on a, basically a glorified Sony television camera, a big giant thing with a big lens on it. So, there's been a spate of independent films that aren't lately, that you could say aren't that good. Everyone starts copying off. Okay, I was doing a lot of science fiction, and nobody else was doing it, and then suddenly everyone's doing a sci-fi film with a guy with a gun and a,
right,
body armor and shooting and punching each other and stuff. Because usually a bunch of stunt guys get together and do an independent film, and they usually get to sell them. But I don't know. It's I try to buck the trends and go in a different direction. For me, and I could, people could say I don't know what I'm doing, and that's for certain. But I go with not what the trend says. I've done those trend movies.
Yeah.
They paid off very well, but then you look back 10 years and you think, wow, why did I do that?
Right.
So it's a thing. It's a bit like your film. You did a romantic, dare I say, almost sex comedy type thing.
Kind of, yeah. Who's Jenna was a romantic sex comedy. You could label it that way. But it was my first feature too.
But it wasn't the thing to do at that time. I think you did it because that's the type of movie you probably enjoyed.
I enjoy that kind of comedy. So and have that kind of fun.
That's you did it because you wanted to do it, not because
this is what's popular.
Yeah, I mean, I was told I went to all the film markets in the 90s and they said, don't do science fiction. I was told so clearly.
Really?
Horror thing. Oh my God, yeah. Horror's the thing. I only wanted to do sci-fi, and that's why my first 2 films were more horror-based, because everyone said, do horror.
Do horror because that sells easily.
Yeah.
Horror. And to this day, I think horror can be done, very
has the best turnaround other than porno.
Yeah, I would say porno makes more money, but gets less respect.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Yeah, Neil, doing sci-fi, there's a lot of stunts, right? I mean, there's a lot of stunt work, there's a lot of action as an independent filmmaker, right? So you're talking, I mean, we've all seen the big budget sci-fis, we've seen the big budget, action films. Here you are as an independent filmmaker. Talk about the process of managing a budget, as well as making it independent and dealing with stunts and action sequences. What's that process like for you as a filmmaker, as an independent filmmaker?
Very complex.
Yeah.
I do like producing my own stuff, because then you know how everything's going together. I've been on some big productions where the production management got out of control and spent money willy-nilly.
Mm.
And that terrified me. It's I've seen runaway budgets, and I think to myself, man, that's another $100,000. Somebody just threw away enough money to buy a Ferrari or a house in Thailand or something. So it's horrible when this stuff happens, and I've seen a lot of ego throw away money, and you got to get real about this stuff. So I'm the tightest producer on the planet. I did some of my films have been, the $500,000 budget mark,
right?
Which sounds like a lot of money, and it is,
yeah.
But it's not when you got to look at you've got to build a giant spaceship.
Comparable.
Yeah.
And compared to a Marvel movie or something, it's like
you will be, but when your budget is the catering budget of a Marvel film, you cannot compare the two together. It's impossible. Yeah. It's just it's just not possible to do that. Yet you've got the ambition of a Marvel film,
right?
And that's always the problem. So you got to be clever about it. And in my younger days, I did more VFX stuff, a lot of VFX shots, which is why we sold the films, because people go, oh, look at all that effort he put into the visual effects.
Right.
The sets weren't better or anything else, but he put a lot of effort into the visual effects, and that does pay off. But I've started investing more so in ancient lenses, good lenses, cinema lenses, good character development, obviously good writing, which doesn't always come off good if you don't have good actors.
Yeah.
But I am investing more in people. This is the big solution to the AI problem that people perceive is coming. Is AI is going to kill Marvel films completely. And I'll tell you why. I mean, they're gone. They're dead. They're dead in the water already, but they don't know it. So if you look at all these AI creations right now, and they're pretty hokey, but if I could sit down right now and I could create, if I want to spend the time, a 50s version of what's a good Marvel film? The Avengers. I want to do a 50s version of the Avengers.
Yeah.
Sounds cool and interesting, It could be called Watchmen. But I do a 50 version of the Avengers and put it all together in CG, and some of the shots look very cartoony, but it looks cool. Yeah. And you can see these videos where people are doing this already. What if Star Wars was made in the 50s or the blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
It's already doable, not to a great level, but it already exists in a competent level where you can watch it and be entertained. And so, I heard about some of the big, the big studio people who are, I forget the name of the producer, director guy, black guy who's doing a lot of the cool films. He was going to put $2 billion into a studio with VFX and this and that. It's a waste. And he said it's a waste of my money and time, because he saw how the AI systems are already at. And he said in 2 to 5 years, it's game over for VFX. It really is. You can already, you can take a person's face and they say something, they might say, I killed that guy with a gun. And you say, oh, you go back in the edit room, you're saying, I don't want that line. I want it to say, I brought the girl some flowers. So AI can already take that face and remap it to make it look like he said, I brought the girl some flowers.
Right.
And you can't tell the difference. So you can also recreate, okay, I want to have the 10 Marvel people standing around with, their swords and their special effects and their zappy stuff that comes out of the hands. You can already do that now in a very rudimentary way. So 2 to 5 years with better programming, better computers, you can rip off a Marvel film perfectly. Now,
Do you
Well,
think and you're saying and you're suggesting, if I'm hearing you right, are you suggesting that that's where independent filmmakers are going to start to do? They're going to
yes,
start to
some will.
invest in AI and find ways of like making their own superhero films or their own,
Yeah.
Star Wars or Star Trek films
Oh,
just with
absolutely.
AI and making it for less money, but yet the quality, as long to your point, as long as the stories are good and the script is decent, you can
Yeah,
have something pretty decent.
absolutely. And it will go the way of the fan film. You know that you have to, because it's using an existing IP. Of course, you can't monetize it, so it'll be like a
Yeah.
fan film. The way those fan films are going. There's some great Star Trek fan films made, and I love some of them recently.
I see that a lot. I see on social media, you'll see fan made films. What's your feel on that? How do you feel about that when you see somebody making a fan film of like Batman or Spider-Man or
I only
whatever?
like it if Batman's real fat.
Batman.
I
Well,
think so what do you you're a real fat Batman.
Fat
But what do
man.
you think about stuff like that when people do that? Are they doing it to market themselves? Are they doing it as a POC? Like what's the purpose of people doing stuff like that?
hopefully they do it for fun. Hopefully because and I can focus on the Star Trek ones because I've done been around a lot of those people.
Mm.
It's a combination sometimes of ego, where they feel they can do better than the people managing the franchise.
Or who actually made
Oh,
it?
wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and no, seriously, they think this, and sometimes they're right. It's a combination of that and love for the original Star Trek. Oh man, I miss the original Star Trek. So I get that, and the same with the Star Wars films. Everyone thinks they can do better than Disney, and of course, most people can't. And if they ever do, I don't think anyone's transitioned from a fan film to a regular film, but it's become a blurred line.
Mm.
That's why for me, and as I said, that is the danger of Marvel is going to collapse. If I can see them dying in their ass. I think the same as Star Wars. The Star Wars handled a little better. But
Well, I mean, Marvel is, I grew up and I'm a huge comic book guy and I love the Marvel and the DCs, but especially Marvel, I feel like they've liquidated the market tremendously. Like there's only so many stories that you can tell, right? And they're starting to like go into the B, not even the B characters. They're starting to go into the C level characters of, like Moon Knight and
the
She
Blue
Hulk
Beetle.
the
The
Blue
Blue
Beetle.
Beetle.
Well, Blue Beetle, that's DC Comics, but it's like they're starting to pull these characters that they didn't do well as comic books, right?
No.
Blue Beetle was in DC Comics, Blue Beetle, they tried to recreate that character and come out as its own comic book, right? And it failed every time, right? And so what the DC decided to do was, well, let's just put him back into the Justice League. Let's put him back into so he's guest starring in the Batman, the big ones, right? And the same thing is happening right now, right? With the movies, you had the big characters, and now they're starting to go to the B's and C's, and it's not working. It's not working at all. It's
Well, it's anything. I mean, even in comedy, like if you saturate the market with the same four actors, then when their movies come out, you go, oh yeah, I'm going to see another Will Ferrell, Paul Rudd movie.
right.
And it's like, but they're great when they were limited, but now there's like a million of them, and you're like, oh, this is the one where Will Ferrell is a stunt driver. This is the one where Will Ferrell's a basketball player. Like they don't even have their own titles anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So now
yeah.
it's like the Marvel movies. You're like, oh, it's the superhero that has this power, and you don't even care who the thing is. Where it's like when it was like new and fresh and exciting, it was like, man, I can't wait for Iron Man. I can't wait for or whoever. But it's like it's just so watered down now. I don't even know any of the new ones.
Oh, they're just not as good. There's so much production, right? There's so much money that's put into them, and the colors and the sound effects and the VFX it looks amazing. But when to your point, Neil, the stories are kind of
Yeah.
the acting is
And I can tell you,
Go
I
ahead.
can tell you why, because I've committed those sins myself. It's when you get clouded by all the green screen, all the technology, and then you write a solution that is based on visual effects. I mean, did you see the film? I guess, did you see the Joker, the Joaquin
Yes.
Phoenix?
Yeah.
Now that was a work of art.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
And that will sustain itself longer,
Agreed.
in the world than Thor 3, for example. Even though I like Thor 3 a lot, I thought it was actually cool.
Right. Ragnarok.
Yeah, the one with the screaming goats. I mean,
Yeah.
I really like that film, but
Yeah.
it's, or dare I say, the Blue Beetle. We've forgotten about the Blue Beetle, but we keep talking about, the Batman that was made by
Chris Nolan.
And also we think about the Joker a lot still. I've rewatched that. Or even
am I in the am I going to get made fun of because when I think of Batman I can only think of Keaton?
Oh, well, Michael Keaton was the first with Tim Burton, but what Christopher Nolan did with Batman was he brought it down to a realistic level. It wasn't green screens. It wasn't all this kind of crazy stuff. And that's, as a filmmaker, and Neil, I think you probably, the reason you brought it up, just like Joker, was that there was a reality to it. There was a sense of story. There was a sense of reality. It wasn't about the screens. It was about the characters and what was being told on the screen. Would you agree?
Yeah. And I would go even further, say it was a sense of truth.
That's it. Exactly. Sense of truth.
And that was my lesson, having made a lot of science fiction films. I've done some serious green screen films in like 2012, all green screen in 4K. Before even the Marvels were doing their stuff, I did the same thing. At the time, it was exciting. Got a big sale. Now I go, I want to fix it. I want to fix it. I want to put the truth back in. So with the Time War, and for my my filmmaking future, I'm investing in characters and truth and reality.
Love it.
The rule is now for me, I have to go on location. So if I want to shoot at a volcano, and I'm going to call out the movie The Northman, okay, if you saw it recently, great film, but they had a scene where two Vikings had to fight each other naked in front of a volcano, which sounds like a great visual. Imagine,
I've seen a few movies with that premise, and
but they chose to do it on a green screen set or whatever it was. It was terribly fake, and I was so saddened by that because I'd taken the effort to actually go to a volcano in Iceland that was erupting and film sequences in front of it.
That's cool.
It was tough work, but I would say it was still easier than doing it on green screen.
Oh no, that's just, that experience is amazing.
Yeah,
but it was wonderful. We brought the texture in. So in the Time War, when you see a volcano, that's me with a camera in a volcano. But
I agree with you. It's when you see it and it's real, there's something more to it. And I'm not a huge sci-fi guy, so like I don't have a ton to back up what I'm saying, but I told my son got into Godzilla, and I know this is like, I'm making a joke, but like I told my son, I go, I like the old Godzilla when you could see the zipper on his ass, you knew it was really happening. I feel like the new ones, it moves so fast and the visual effects are so close that you don't even know what's going on.
Let me tell you, I've tried to watch those movies and I can't, because it's all over the place. There's, to your point, there's no story. It's just let's
show off.
Let's show off as much as we can. And I've lost a lot of respect for those movies.
Show me some real stuntmen doing fighting over, like, show me like Rocky. Where they're fighting in the ring over the Avengers.
You know what I've been watching a lot of lately are whether you like his movies or you don't like his movies, the Mission Impossible films with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
I've rewatched them recently, and even the latest ones like Ghost Protocol, and the ones after that. I mean, they were just so. I mean, here's a guy right, who's doing the actual stunt. And I was actually watching a clip of Matt Damon. It is Ghost Protocol, and it's the scene when Tom Cruise's character Ethan Hunt, they're in Dubai, and he's climbing the glass building, and he's hooked onto a line, and he's got to get from one, he's on the glass, and he's got to propel himself down by like 4 flights of 4 stories, or 2 or 3 stories, right? And Matt Damon tells a story about how he's like, Tom, how did you do that shot? Like, how did you get that off? You wanted to do it live. And he said, Tom Cruise said, well, I went to this stunt coordinator and the gentleman who was going to do it, and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to be hooked up to a line, and I want to propel myself down into 2 stories, and I want to get that shot of me, flying off the glass building. And the stunt coordinator said, no, you can't do that. So Matt Damon said, well, then what did you do? So I got another stunt coordinator, right? And he kept so he wanted that reality of that shot until someone said, all right, you can do it, right? And you look at like what he did in the next Mission Impossible movie, where he's on the actual plane holding on, right? Or this last one where Dead Reckoning, when he did you guys see when he does the stunt with the motorcycle, and he flies off, right? And it's a great shot. It's a great thing on social media. You see him fly off. It cuts back to the directors and the producers watching Tom Cruise fly off off this cliff, and then he parachutes, and he gets down to the bottom, and he grabs the microphone, the walkie-talkie, goes, I want to do it again. I didn't get it. Like, that to me, that's filmmaking. You know what I mean? Now, whether you like Tom Cruise or you don't like Tom Cruise, whatever it may be, but to me, that's filmmaking. It's like really getting into the nitty gritty of it, not doing it with a green screen, right, Neil? And just saying, well, I can just jump into a green screen and we can just do it 20 times. No, he got back on the bike and he did it again. Like, that's, to me, is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And
right. I mean,
that's the truth.
That is the truth. And I think, again, whether you like the guy or not, I respect him as a filmmaker, and I respect a lot of the work that he does. And I respect the work that you're doing, Neil. I think it's great that you're making that commitment to tell the truth and do the truth and put in the work and get in front of a volcano and film it.
Cool.
Right? I mean, that's amazing. That's pretty awesome.
It was
hard
hard
work. So Neil, what's that?
It was hard work.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Now, Neil, where are you at right now? Are you on the West Coast? You're in Australia? Where are you at, my friend?
Oh no, I'm on just outside of Los Angeles.
Nice.
On the West Coast. I don't think I'll ever go back to Australia. I'm British, so I don't think I'll ever go back to Australia except just to see family briefly. But most of my time is spent here. Then the UK, Scotland, and of course Iceland. I have to go back because it's the only place that looks like another planet. So.
I love it. When you looking to do that? What's your timeline?
Well, okay, so it's interesting right now. I'll give you the quick overview. I decided to put all my film. I got sick of people asking me, where can we watch your movies? So I stuck them all up on YouTube for a limited time. Everything. Sweet. I'm doing it, week by week, slowly. And the idea is just to, I'm going to pull them all back soon. And each film, I'm going to, we're going to remaster into 4K. And so, I've got to find some money to do that. That's a separate thing, because you can always resell your movies again and again and again and hopefully fix them and make them a little better. That's plan number one. But then I did a film in 2017 called Rogue Warrior Robot Fighter, which is
Tracy.
Yeah. And we're actually going to shoot, we've already shot another 4 hours of that story. It's in the can.
Excellent.
And then some of it's shot on the GH5S. Yes.
I love it.
Most of it's the red, but I love Panasonic cameras. And then we're going to probably shoot a little bit more of that, and that'll come out after the Time War as well. So it's just a matter of, you've got to keep stuff coming out. And again, it's going back to the truth of the character. And I've actually banned myself from using 3D animated spaceships anymore. I banned green screens are necessary evil sometimes, because of certain reasons. You don't want to kill an actor, so it's not a good idea. But,
Right. Yeah, for sure.
but
Well,
generally
depends which
speaking,
actor.
It depends on who they are, Mark.
yeah. But and so I put all these limitations on myself going forward. So it's going to be real spaceships, really physically built, robots built for real. Locations are all real. So when you watch something, has a truth about it, well, we really were there.
That's awesome.
The mountainside really did burn. This happened, that happened, whatever it is. There was lightning up on the Isle of Skye in Scotland, which I was up there, a while back. A big lightning storm. I was stuck in it, and I started filming it, and it looked good. So that's kind of the rule now. It's kind of let nature give you what it will give you.
Love it.
And that's the fun part. It becomes a lifestyle.
So is there while we have you on here, I mean, our producer, because this is recorded, so this will be airing probably sometime next week, or airing right now live. Is there something we can put up on the screen here that people can, as you said, I know you hate people asking where they can watch it, but you said you're putting films up, you're pulling them. Is there somebody where people can follow your work, can follow you?
Absolutely. It's we could all say that the social medias and stuff, which is fine, but I think just easier. Just go to YouTube and type in Empire Motion Pictures.
Empire Motion Pictures, great.
I mean, that just makes it easy, and from there you can find everything. But then you can see the stuff as it goes live. And unfortunately, my most viewed film is also my most hated film. My most beloved film is the least one watched.
And that is.
Oh, I don't want to mention that film.
Come on, dude. All right.
Look, okay. Well, I'll go through the list. At the moment, in fact, I'm going to read it on the phone. Just you're going to find this amusing. Not all my old films are re-released at the moment, but
all right.
I'm going to give you the quick list because it's absolutely fascinating. Where are they? I've got a film called Nephilim Kingdom, which is also called Alien Armageddon. I changed names for reasons that we should discuss here. It's very popular and very hated. Now I've got another film called Humanity's End, absolutely beloved film. Starship Rising, Starship Apocalypse. There's 2 films in that series. It's a film called Chrononaut, which is a film I'm really fond of. Another film that's most hated is I made a version of the War of the Worlds. It's not the best version of War of the Worlds, but I was asked to do an alien invasion film for a low budget, and I just snuck in War of the Worlds.
Love it. Love it.
It goes on. I mean, there's a list, but Rogue Warrior Robot Fighter is probably one of my more loved films.
Great.
And that does star Tracy Birdsall, and there is so much more story of that to come out. So, but just go to YouTube and keep your eye on the channel, as it's going to keep updating. Sooner or later, I'm going to take it all off and stick it and sell it back to distributors.
Smart man.
Yeah, I just want to keep people watching my stuff because you
got it, man. You're a filmmaker. You're working hard on it. All right, so real quick before we let you go here, we always ask this question.
I think I have a stipulation on his.
I know exactly what your stipulation is.
Then you go for it.
No. Go ahead.
All right. We always ask everybody, what's your 3 favorite films? If you're stuck on a desert island, you could only watch 3 films the rest of your life. What would they be? But I have a thing that I want to change specifically for you. 3 favorite sci-fi films.
I thought you were going to, hang on, before you answer, I'll give you a chance to think about that. I thought you were going to say to him 3 films, but they can't be sci-fi.
Oh,
that would be good. I can do that.
Oh, can you do that? Let's do that.
Yeah. This guy, I wanted to get some hints because I don't watch enough sci-fi movies.
All right, so you're on 2 different islands. One island that you can watch 3 of your favorite sci-fi films, and then another island where you have no access to sci-fi films.
And you can switch islands every once in a while.
So you get 6 films. Give it to us. Come on.
Okay, for non-sci-fi, this is going to sound really weird, but
have you heard? Wait till you hear this guy's list. Go ahead.
Okay, Eyes Wide Shut.
Okay,
good.
Because there's more in that movie than we realize, and the more I watch it, the more I learn. I get things out of. Barry Lyndon, another Stanley Kubrick film. and The Devils.
The
Bet you've
Devils.
never seen that film.
No.
I haven't. I'm gonna look that up.
Again, you've watched it the first time, you think this is ridiculous, and then it grows on you.
I love it.
It's a Ken Russell film from the 70s.
Nice.
There's been entire books written, documentaries made on that film, but it's quite a treat to watch if you ever get your hands on it.
Nice.
Awesome.
Very
All right,
blast movie.
So now your 3 films are your sci-fi.
3 sci-fi.
Well, Empire Strikes Back will be number 1 because
I
that was my film school.
Such a great movie.
I was actually going to ask earlier because it's like the Elvis Beatles question: are you Star Wars or Star Trek?
Yeah, why choose? I say. I would always choose the
great
Beatles.
answer.
I would always choose the Beatles over Elvis, but that's because I'm British. You see.
I love it. All right, so Empire Strikes Back, which is a fantastic choice. I love it.
Yeah. You know, I would hate to go all Star Wars movies. So,
You can.
you know, if I could grab the box set, I'd just grab the box set of all.
Let's let you do that. You get the box set of Star Wars.
I'll just take the box set, you know. God, what other science fiction films do I love these days? I've watched everything to death, you see, and this is the problem. So I would probably say for, you know, personal reasons, The Time Machine, because that was the first book I ever read.
Love it.
So the movie relates to that.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually say Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Perfect. Love it.
The poetry.
Nice.
The poetry of that, the epicness, the glory.
Oh, it was such that, and it was that movie basically brought the franchise back, because when the first film, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, came out, it was completely panned by the critics, and it just and that movie, sometimes I'll see it like on HBO or whatever, and I think what's wrong with that film is that then it took too long. Right, there was the shots were very long of the ship, and it was took a long time, but there was an appreciation for it. I think that film was almost ahead of its time, right?
Yeah, but see, they committed the sin of telling the story through the visual effects.
Yes, 1,000,000%, 1,000,000%, Neil. I totally agree with you. It was more about, look at all these toys that we have to play with, and this budget, let's do what we can with it. Versus to the point you made earlier, they lost the story, they lost the truth.
Yeah.
Neil, this. Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh no, I was going to say, even Star Trek V had a better storyline than Star Trek: The Motion Picture, the hated Star Trek V.
Yes.
But Star Trek V failed because
Final Frontier.
It failed because the ending relied on visual effects.
1,000,000%.
Here's God. Oh, but he's a big cartoon.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate, because I actually liked that. I actually liked that movie right up until the end. I did. They had me in Star Trek V, Final Frontier. William Shatner was in the director's chair, and I was in it. I was like, all right, I'm in it. And then the last 15 minutes of the movie, it got silly. Neil, this was so great talking to you, so great having you on, and we'd love to have you back on to talk more about your career and what's going on and what you're doing with all of your films. But thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I love your YouTube stuff, by the way. It reminded me a bit. It had that modern version of Clerks. You know, that's
yes, the Checked Out. Yeah, in fact, actually, we were just talking about it earlier. We're going to be going into a season 2 for Checked Out. So thank you so much for watching it.
Yeah, thanks.
Very entertaining.
Appreciate that.
Make me laugh.
All right, so folks, make sure you follow Neil. All of this information is going to be up on here. Make sure you follow 624 Podcast, and thank you so much for doing this. Thank you, audience. We love you guys.